अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of NL Hafta. I'm Abhinandan Sekhri. It has been a week which has been dominated, and justifiably so, by the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir, where 27 tourists were gunned down. Is that correct? 27 is the
26.
final official figure. 26 is the official figure now. And a similar amount, I think 25 were rushed to the hospital, who now at least appears out of danger. Four gunmen have been identified as the perpetrators of this crime. So most of this discussion will be dominated by that. Before I get to the headlines and the discussion, I would like to just remind you that we have a News Minute and News Laundry Sena project up. Most of it has been topped up, but we're still about a lakh short. So do contribute, because as you know, we do not take any advertising money. We are only sustained by the money that you give us through subscriptions and your support. In the studio with me today, our in-house talent, Anand Vardhan. Hi, Anand.
Hello.
Raman Kirpal.
Hi.
Rajiv, who I see is not wearing a News Laundry cap. We must give Raman sir a News Laundry
No,
cap
I
after
have. I
this.
have.
Manisha Pande.
Hello.
And joining us is our guest today, Manoj Joshi. Thank you, Manoj, for joining us. Mr. Joshi is a veteran journalist. He is now a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, ORF. As you recall, Samir has been here on the Hafta, as have many other guests from ORF. He has been a journalist and he's had a long and distinguished career. He has been the political editor of the Times of India. He's been the views editor of Hindustan Times, the defense editor for India Today, national affairs editor of Mail Today, the Washington correspondent for the Financial Express, and a special correspondent for the Hindu. So he's pretty much worked for every big news organization out there. He was also a member of India's National Security Council's advisory board from 2004 to 2006. In 2011, Mr. Joshi was appointed by the government of India's Cabinet Committee on Security to be member of a high-level national task force. So we're hoping to get some insights from you, sir, on what has developed and what we can expect in the future. But before we do that, Manisha will give us the headlines of the week.
Yes, in one of the most horrifying terror attacks on civilians in Jammu and Kashmir in 2 decades, 26 people were gunned down in Pahalgam on Tuesday. This included 25 tourists and one Kashmiri local. The Resistance Front, a shadowy group of the banned Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Toiba, has claimed responsibility for the attack. The attack occurred days after Pakistani Army Chief General Asim Munir described Kashmir as a jugular vein of his country and invoked the two-nation theory. A day later, India retorted by suspending the 1960 Indus Water Treaty, cancelling all visas granted to Pakistan nationals under the SARC scheme, and shutting down the Atari-Wagah border. The Pakistani government, meanwhile, announced the closure of its airspace for all India-owned or Indian-operated airlines. Amit Shah arrived in Srinagar on Tuesday. PM Modi cut short his Jeddah trip. Speaking in Bihar yesterday, he said India will pursue Kashmir attackers to the ends of the earth. Aftermath of the Pahalgam attack was that Kashmiri students in Dehradun were threatened by the Hindu Raksha Dal to leave the city within 10 days. Jammu and Kashmir Students Association also alleged that in Chandigarh, Kashmiri students were brutally attacked with sharp weapons in their hostels. There's been some videos that have come out in Punjab. I'm not sure which city, but students there standing up for Kashmiri students saying that, okay, you cannot attack them and we'll not let them leave. Rakesh Sharma, a senior journalist with Dainik Jagran, was assaulted and chased for allegedly questioning BJP leaders about a security lapse in Pahalgam while covering a protest in JNK's Kathua. Videos of this were out. You could really see him getting, beaten up. And he simply asked them that, how long are you going to keep burning Pakistani flags? It's an easy way to escape accountability. What are you guys actually doing?
And he was a Jagran.
Yeah. US Vice President J.D. Vance made his first visit to India this week. The visit was largely a private affair as Mr. Vance, his wife Usha, and 3 children toured Delhi, Jaipur, and Agra. There was also a dinner with the Prime Minister, which was televised. Days after VP Jagdeep Dhankar hit out at the judiciary, BJP MP Nishikant Dubey alleged that CJI Sanjeev Khanna was responsible for all civil wars in the country and that the Supreme Court of India was responsible for religious wars. The BJP has distanced itself from these remarks.
Of course, Dhankar has doubled down, but I must say Mr. Dhankar has really brought every office he's been in to disrepute. The editorials by even a now very muted media on Dhankar the next day were humiliating. I mean, if I was Dhankar, I'd be embarrassed. pretty much, I think I read 3
No, if you were Dhankar,
edits.
you wouldn't be. You're
Yeah, if
just
I was
like...
Ankar, I wouldn't give a shit. But yeah, I know the Times, Express, and there was one more.
Times are a
Which,
very strong leader on this.
which
Yeah.
all 3, but I mean, I
And
think,
even Kapil Sibal also advised him that he should not, look like siding with the ruling party. So,
right, yeah.
so they said that.
In Manipur, several homes were burned down in 2 Kuki villages in the Naga-dominated Kamjong district. The Delhi High Court ordered Patanjali founder Ramdev to take down advertisements against Ruabza, where he claimed that the drink was being used to orchestrate Sharbat Jihad. The High Court said that the comment by Ramdev was indefensible and it shocks the conscience of the court. The Marathwada region in Maharashtra recorded 269 cases of farmer suicides between January and March 2025 alone. This is government data. 204 such deaths were registered in the same period last year, so this is an uptick of 32% in suicides. The police in Odisha's Jharsuguda arrested 2 men in connection with the murder of a father and son in West Bengal's Murshidabad during violence that erupted in the Waqf amendment protests. A suspended SHO in Haryana was arrested on charges of custodial torture and police brutality against a Rajasthan local. He was detained on allegations of fraud in December. In his complaint, the victim said, "I was made to drink chili solution and the same was injected into my private parts."
In fact, this is a good time for us to remind you of this project that you see. There's a QR code on the screens. This is going to investigate police brutality and police excesses across the country, across at least 5 states. We will be sending 5 reporters and about 4 producers. So do contribute. You can scan the QR code or you can click on the link in the show notes below. And do share this with other friends or relatives of yours who are, cribbing about there not being any media that does investigative journalism. We're doing it, but we can only do it if you support us because we cannot do it with ad funds.
The union government told the Supreme Court that its recent judgment on Tamil Nadu Governor's Bill will not apply to Kerala. A bench of Justices P.S. Narasimha and Joymala Bagchi were hearing a petition filed by Kerala in 2023 against the governor's delay in acting on bills. Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church and the Vatican City, died at the age of 88 on Monday. President Murmu will leave for the Vatican City to attend Pope Francis' funeral.
And I found out he was a bouncer when he was young.
Really?
Interesting, yeah.
I don't know.
He worked as a bouncer as a student at a bar. Right, is that the headlines?
Yeah.
So before we go into the discussion, just want to tell all our wonderful subscribers that we will be having a subscriber meetup in Chennai. That's right, in Chennai on the 3rd of May. Our wonderful partner organization, Editor-in-Chief, Dhanya Rajendran will be there, as will Shabir Ahmad, and I believe Jayashree will also be there. We had a chat with her, so you can meet Jayashree, Dhanya and Shabir and also get an idea of what all is planned going forward. The idea of these subscriber meetups is that we can actually interact with you face to face, get feedback, inputs, which is what makes us, better and better, so that we can ensure that what we cannot see from an objective eye or a dispassionate eye from inside, you can hold the mirror to us and tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. So you have to be a subscriber. So if you want to attend the meetup, there are limited seats. So please send us an email at subscriptions@thenewsminute.com. I repeat, subscriptions@thenewsminute.com. We'll send you the details of where the subscriber meetup is, what time it is. So do attend and give us honest feedback and meet other subscribers. It's a fantastic way to meet like-minded people. On that note, thank you so much, Manoj, for joining us. I'd like to, explore this development from 3 or 4 angles. One, of course, is the media angle, which, Raman and Manisha can comment on. But let me start with the 2, since you're also a foreign policy expert. One, in light of the speech of the Pakistan army chief, and I have seen much speculation that this is his way of staying on in power because he's due to retire. A bit like the Netanyahu kind of formula that so that I don't have to face justice, let me continue the war.
Our stance, government stance on Kashmir is absolutely clear. It was our jugular vein. It is our jugular vein. We will not forget it. And we will not leave our Kashmiri brethren in their heroic struggle, what they are waging against the Indian occupation. And we have fought 3 wars for Kashmir.
I mean, is that a fair assessment? Is it a credible assessment, or is it just coincidence? What does Park really have to gain, because it has a significant amount to lose? And I'll just throw the third question right now, and you can take it in any order. Given Trump is the president, and his entire boast was that if I were president, Ukraine, Russia would not have happened, Taiwan, China would not have happened, no one would have hit anyone, I basically can stop. So it would be egg on his face if there was a conflict to start. Yet he is a close ally of Modi. So do you think, to save his face in the US, Trump, he would put undue pressure on India to not retaliate? Those are the three, broad angles that I'd like you to tell us about.
Starting with the last point, I'm not so sure that Trump is so focused on this region. He's got enough headaches of his own. I mean, he's right now Ukraine. He's criticized Putin yesterday. He's looking at West Asia. I don't know if he's really concerned too much about what is happening in South Asia. So I don't think he's about to jump into the fray. As far as Asim Munir is concerned, my own guess is that, Pakistan's a divided polity. It's a divided polity. The most popular man in Pakistan is in jail, Imran Khan. The government, the civilian government there, Shehbaz Sharif and all that, they don't really have credibility. We all know who really won the election in Pakistan. And the other more dramatic thing that's happened has been the split in the army. The General Faiz Hamid, who used to be the former ISI chief, has been put in jail. He's being court-martialed.
On what allegation?
I don't think I'm not quite sure about what are the specific things, but the point is, here was this man who was riding high, who was a potential chief, and Munir was appointed, and thereafter Faiz Hamid has been arrested. I think they'll have some charge or the other cooked up, meaning corruption or whatever it is. But Faiz Hamid was supposed to be close to Imran Khan.
Right.
And when Imran lost out, then he also lost out. But the point is that there is a split in the army, meaning the army normally is very united on who becomes its chief. And the Pakistan army also has the tradition that whoever becomes the chief, everyone listens to him after that. Meaning, say, if you recall, when Musharraf became chief, so when he did Kargil, the Pakistan army was behind him. When he changed and he and India started making peace over Kashmir, the Pakistani army backed him. But the moment he left and General Kayani came, the Pakistan army was back to its old ways. And of course, right through, there is this so-called deep state elements of the ISI and others who in some ways run a kind of an autonomous operation of the kind like the Mumbai attack in 2008, the current Pahalgam attack that has taken place. So I think when Munir and the other thing with Pakistan is that it's in not in particularly good shape economically. So this is an ideal time to raise the flag of Kashmir and to raise the flag of Kashmir Liberation Movement, to externalize the problem by creating a situation in Kashmir.
But they have to be able to afford a conflict as well, right? If they are so bad, or in such a bad situation economically.
You see, the thing is that if you are in their, look at it from, if you are in their boots, you're looking for options. You don't really care. Meaning, your point is, how do I buy it? You just referred to Netanyahu, and you know. So you don't really care. This thing is survival.
By time.
Not survival as a human being, but survival in your post.
Right. So it is highly likely that, the general has acted unilaterally without really necessarily having a buy-in from the political class because there is no
No, political class
strength.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't, right? So he can just
Political classes doesn't matter when
In
it comes to
Pakistan.
the India policy.
Mm.
It is the Pakistan army.
I see.
So there's no question of acting unilaterally. And then this we have been seeing since, see, when General Bajwa was there, 2019, 2020, 2021, there were back channel talks between India and Pakistan. Meaning Doval met a Pakistani official. There was talks in London between an Indian intelligence official and General Ifsandyar Khan Pataudi, who was an ISI man. And there was also talk of Modi going to visit Pakistan and go to the temple of Hinglaj Mata Mandir in Pakistan. So all that is happening in that period.
And nothing like that happens anymore. Back channels
Well,
is pretty much done.
I don't think so. I'm not in the know in that sense, but nothing of that sort. But after Munir has come, there has been a hard line.
Mhm.
And we have seen a step up in Kashmir of the attacks. There have been attacks on security forces. All the around in Pir Panjal range, Poonch, Rajouri, Kathua, Doda. There have been some attacks, and then last year after Umar was sworn in as chief minister, again the attacks began in the valley. There was an attack in that tunnel project that is going on. 8 or 9 people were killed.
Yeah.
So 8, 9, 6, 7, 4, 5 people kept on, whether security forces or civilians, have been dying in incidents in Kashmir in the last 3 years. And now this is the culmination where, for the first time in 20 years, tourists have been exclusively targeted, meaning
Right.
they're defenseless.
Specifically, it's just them, right?
See, they are completely defenseless, and they are. Incidentally, Pahalgam was the place where, in 1993, 6 foreigners were kidnapped, and out of them, 1 escaped, but the others have never been seen again.
Mm.
So it was a similar thing. The foreign tourists thought that the conflict would not hit them, and they could,
Right.
be in Pahalgam and have a good time. But
Clearly not.
the Harkatul Ansar at that time decided that they wanted a big sensational event. So they actually, it was triggered probably by the arrest of the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief.
So, before I come back to it, I'd just like to go to the rest of the panel. One is, Manisha, you had spent some time in Kashmir during the election, and you were telling me about on ground the sense of security or lack of security, and also what you saw that now the terrorists come from, not where they used to come from earlier, way more foresty region, which is harder to kind of patrol, and the army is not too keen to go there unless they have a lot more reinforcements. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so actually, I was there in November, and any journalist who's been to Jammu and Kashmir, who's been reading about it, or has sources there, speaks to journalists there, would not be. It's a shocking incident, but I was not surprised, because when we were there was a real sense of foreboding that I was at least picking up on, and especially in Jammu, because now for 2 years there's been infiltration happening. There was enough conversation about the fact that these guys are coming in from the Pir Panjal areas. That is where the new battleground is. Army had lost about more than 20 soldiers in 2023 itself. So army was suffering heavy casualties, and we were hearing about this in the Poonch Rajouri sector. There had been the Riyasi attack, which was a signaling of the fact that something is shifting in how terrorism was operating in that area. While the valley was peaceful and we were tom-tomming tourist numbers, Jammu was quite uneasy. Riyasi was way into, India. It was again an attack on tourists. It was broad daylight. It's the same resistance force that took accountability, or that took responsibility for it. And what was what people were saying were basically three things. One, that these guys who are infiltrating, it's very difficult to catch them because they're using sophisticated technology that we are unable to tap in. So we're reaching where they were, but 10 days later. So they're using SMS technology, which cannot be tracked. They were using drones to drop weapons along the LOC, which again cannot be tracked. They weren't depending so much on local networks. So if you're not depending too much on
So
local
local
networks,
informants are out
it's
of the
very
loop.
difficult to gather human intelligence on where they're moving. The second thing was that and the area itself, the topography, it's dense jungles. They were using guerrilla tactics, so they'll attack an army convoy, go into the jungles. Following them all the way into jungles would mean falling into their death trap.
Possible casualties.
So, and this was all being reported quite a bit and talked about in Jammu, especially after Riyasi
but
attack.
not by
I
the
think-
national media, clearly.
Yeah, I think that now we're hearing that, from sources in the government, that this Pahalgam meadow was opened up without police permission. I don't know how 2,000 people can land up in a meadow if the police had not allowed for it.
Hmm.
We know that the Prime Minister was going to inaugurate a train just 10 days ago and it was cancelled because of bad weather. But surely if the Prime Minister was supposed to be visiting this place, which is seeing such heightened activity, there would have been intelligence that they are picking up on. Something could have happened, and it's possible that the inauguration was cancelled because there was a threat perception. But questions have to be asked on, should this have been a normal summer tourism season when you know that these attacks have been happening in Jammu, there's been infiltration, there's a lot of unease about the fact that we're unable to detect these guys. They're like ghosts. They come, they go, we are unable to track where they're going, what they're doing. One of the terrorists apparently has been around for 2 years, what we're hearing. And he's claimed, some other attack on a tunnel where they said that they were again claimed responsibility for that. So the fact that this was happening and you allowed a normal tourism season, I think questions have to be asked about why there wasn't enough. At least if you can't track the guys and that you're having a human resource issue in tackling this, you could have tackled the trickling down of tourists at least.
So,
And this thing of that the meadow was open and the police didn't know is just, it's very difficult to digest.
I mean, you use
How does a person how does the whole security apparatus in Pahalgam not know that something has been opened? 2,000 people are going there and you don't know.
And also, like one eyewitness said, 25 minutes passed before any security arrived. That means for half an hour, there was this happening. And
It was the pony
in the
guys
most-
who finally
so,
alerted the
but
CRPF.
you use the phrase questions should be asked, but the fact is who's going to ask those questions? In fact, I'm going to get to that later, the media angle. But
But I think there was, there's one must look at this in perspective. Back in 2000, I'm not even going beyond that. In 2000, according to the figures of the South Asia Terrorism Portal, about 1,025 people, civilians, were killed in Kashmir. The last 2 or 3 years, it has been 30 per year. Approximately 35, 36, 30. This incident, 27 have been killed. So what I'm saying is, you look at it in perspective. So there was a sense of complacency. From the 1,000, it had come down to 30.
right.
The same thing if you look at security force killing
Casualties.
So this has bred a sense of complacency out there.
Right. I mean, if we were not to take, let's say, 40-year window, and I just want to come to Anand on the foreign policy angle, but, to your point, between 2002 and 2015, I personally have visited, of course, this is anecdotal, but I mean, the data on how much violence there was is public. I have visited Kashmir at least 7 times, and not just alone as a tourist, with a camera crew shooting shows for, Discovery, Fox Traveler, NDTV Good Times. I used to do travel shows. I have driven from Delhi to Jammu to Kashmir to Ladakh. I have driven to Pahalgam. And at no point did we ever think twice that should we go and shoot there with a camera crew, with, a unit. And those days, cameras were not like iPhones, they were big. So it was quite a tamjham when you'd go. One of our documentary films was screened at a film festival in Srinagar, and they had a film festival. So I'm not saying it was normal, but at least between 2007 and 2015, I visited several times. And we never thought twice that should we go, should we, attract attention towards ourselves. And we'd go by road. So, I mean, I don't know
But
how.
that is the period in which you have, if you actually look at the figures, the lowest comes down to about 2011, 2012.
Right.
Okay, the lowest figures of casualties of I don't have the figures right here, but you can always look them up in satp.org. But lowest is at about 2007 was when the process began with Musharraf to resolve the Kashmir dispute, where we had agreed on the so-called 4-point formula. We were about to settle on that, which would have seen a
So, why do you explain there is this resurgence of the.
research. Well, the point is Musharraf went. The 4-point formula never came because the Musharraf was overthrown, if I may put it that way, and Pakistan went back to Kayani, the hardline chief of the army. So, as I told you earlier, that Pakistan army is quite follows its chief, and if the chief under Musharraf was making peace with India, okay. But
Kayani
if
said
Kayani,
no.
so there was a shift. So that period, 2007, 2014, I would say. Thereafter that, but in this period, what happened was that you were having the so-called stone throwing incidents.
Yeah. In fact, we did a documentary on that. It was regular. After every namaz, there would be that.
So there was civil protest, but that itself was an indicator of normalcy.
Exactly. It was a valve release, like pressure cooker.
You could throw stones and not expect the security force to shoot back at you.
In fact, I mean, that's an interesting point that what they claimed was they had made Kashmir quiet, like you pointed out, was
No
actually
hartals,
the opposite was
no-
actually happening
no
just
so-
because of the visual, because your management of information is such. It appears that everything is well, but not necessarily. But Anand, a couple of things. One is ambassadors of 5 or 6 countries, significant powers of the world, were briefed yesterday and day before. Amit Shah went and met the President of India. There were a bunch of such meetings. Now, in foreign policy terms, does that mean something significant has already been decided? Because I could be wrong, but I don't recall, ambassadors of various countries being briefed about something. So what could that be? Should we assume that something significant is going to happen, which is why this entire, pre-production is happening, so that there is no surprises for any foreign country, so they don't intervene? Or is this SOP, so we should not read too much into it?
It could be SOP. Also, the exercise in letting countries know that where we stand on this. So, a kind of messaging of the self-perception about the incident. That could be. And third, of course, retaliatory kind of exercise could be in making, but I cannot guess that. Also to add to Mr. Joshi's point, the factors that might have shaped the supposed response of Ashim Munir. One could be also the diversion from the insurgency within Pakistan, the Balochistan factor, and so they have an insurgency themselves. They themselves have an insurgency in India, and they are engineering it. So let us deflect it there. So that could also be one of the triggers. So, if proxy terrorism is, as India sees it, an instrument of state policy in Pakistan, the Pakistan's way of seeing it has been in a phrase managed escalation, a kind of escalation that can be managed when two nuclear powers are there, and so do something which is below the threshold of very direct confrontation, but sends the signals in ways that one could be for domestic consumption, and also in terms of military projection of a foreign policy objective. So all these things might have worked, but second, on the security point of view, means of course complacency factor is there. Also, it's just common sense that if you are even very much prepared, the subversive forces have to get lucky only one time. And even if you are aborting lot of attempts 1,000 times, it may not be reported, but say violent incident like this would come to light. They have to get only one time lucky, and the vigilance has to be a much round the clock for months, for years. You look at say Israel, the IDF, supposed to be the best security mechanism of a security state, and they didn't get lucky on the day, and they were their security was breached. So I think on ground a lot of other factors matter. Third is that one factor which might have come into many uh, discussions, like coinciding these kind of attacks when foreign dignitaries are visiting.
Yeah.
Just a day before Bill Clinton visited India in 2000, there was attack on Sikhs in Kashmir. Also, Madeleine Albright with Talbot, when she visited, there was an attack. Then the Kaluchak, I am getting so lot of. I think this could have been a trigger for greater preparedness. So, if a high-profile visit is there, J.D. Vance is visiting, maybe extra security measures and some preparedness could have been put in place.
Yeah, but
So-
after the specifics have emerged of the amount of time it took for the forces to actually show up, while I take your point that they just have to get lucky one time, but considering it's the most militarized zone in the world, and I remember when all the times where I've gone and we've gone to shoot. In fact, we used to, after the shoot was over, we used to have dinner. We used to go for walks around. I mean, it was not even like we felt scared in the dark to take a walk, whether it was Pahalgam, whether it was Srinagar. We've driven, across also at night. In fact, I remember when the second time we went, we came back from Ladakh side. It was dark and it didn't really bother us. Now there is, there is a lot of paranoia. But if no uniform showed up even after 30 minutes, then that is a lapse. And I think, sorry, I'll just come to you. I just want to take Raman sir's view. If we were to see, because you've covered crime, you've covered various aspects, the one person who has not been questioned, while a small 8-year-old boy has been questioned, journalists who have been questioned have been questioned, no one has the guts to question Amit Shah. And Amit Shah's, who was that Congress Home Minister, who used to keep changing his clothes? Shivraj Patil. He used to be hauled over coals on a regular basis.
He used to keep changing clothes.
And I remember on loop they played this video of his where he didn't want to step in a puddle and he was avoiding the puddle, and they played this on loop. What do you call? पानी में पैर रखने से भी डरते हैं, ये क्या देश का control? Anyway, I think Amit Shah's record has been dismal. I mean, look at what happened in Delhi, in the capital, when the Northeast riots happened. If you were to investigate like we have, there is enough evidence to say there was no desire to stop it.
Manipur, I think.
I mean, any other home minister with this kind of record would be hauled over coals. Mr. Amit Shah, no one has the guts to ask him a single question. So from that perspective, you think he has just got a complete free run, and would it be smart of Modi to haul him up? Because media is not going to question him. Small outfits like ours will never get a chance to question him. So what accountability, what is his incentive to be a good home minister? Because he's been a useless home minister so far. He's good at, instilling fear in the media. He's good at instilling fear in opposition. He's good at Amit Shah aake ab sarkar palat denge. These kind of,
Chanakyagiri.
yeah, this Ghatiya level horse trading is his forte. As a home minister, what is his incentive to be at all useful?
See, violence is not new to Kashmir, And if it was the all time, so maybe the home minister will take the moral responsibility and resign for this. But I don't squarely blame Amit Shah for whatever is happening in Kashmir. Just look at the build-up. I mean, I was there for the Indian Express in 2000, and my first ever visit to Kashmir, where I was going to attend the meeting, my editorial meeting, and the Chittisinghpura happened. So early in the morning, when I'm leaving for the airport, there was a band. Taxi could go to 1 point, so 2 kilometer. I'm running towards the airport just to catch the plane, catch my flight, and then I land there. Muzammil Jalil, who is
Indian
still with
Express.
Express, and Javed Khan, I think. He was the photographer. So both of them had come at the airport to receive me. And I drove that Javed's car, Maruti 800. Directly we went to Chittisinghpura. So I'm just telling you the build-up, how things are happening. I mean, that was my first, I was witness to it. So Chittisinghpura, when we reached there was a Gurdwara, and there were about 7 to 10 pyres within the vicinity burning. And inside the Gurdwara, there is one retired IPS Sikh officer who was telling that how it happened. So again, there were some people in the military attire. They used to come to the village, acclimatize themselves, with the people over there, with the children. They started playing cricket with them, or whatever game they used to play. So for a month or so, this is how these people used to come, and then the massacre happened.
Which is what Manisha is saying doesn't happen anymore. They don't kind of
So the massacre happened.
Hulo-milo with the locals.
So this is what we witnessed, we saw, we heard, and then you see the build-up, in the past 24 years. Again, 4 years ago, I went as a tourist to Kashmir, where I went to Gurez Valley, where hardly anybody used to go, now people had started going to that place. And also you see whatever has happened. 370 was abolished. I was with DNA, then we had done also a story based on government intelligence reports that over 70% of the youths in living in Kashmir, they have been radicalized. Shweta Desai, my reporter, it was a very credible story. We had quoted and everything. It was in DNA, and we had done that story. So if you just look at the build-up, internally, we did not care so much, into the confidence building among the people. So the locals were completely alienated.
That's correct.
Okay, and our response
And that is something we've got from
our
several
response
people.
was handling. Of course, we did a lot of development also, like this train thing. I mean, this bridge where it's a iconic bridge, 359 meter, above the land. It's a beautiful bridge, I was told, and which Prime Minister was going to inaugurate on 19th, but due to bad weather, he could not go over there. So, and it has 9 tunnels to reach Srinagar. Katra, from Katra to Srinagar. So development is happening, everything is happening, but local people were completely alienated. So in this kind of scenario, of course, there is a Pak supported terrorism which is happening, and not happening now. It has been happening
For decades.
for decades. So now, and you have alienated these people. So the local, earlier there was, during our time when we used to work in Jammu and Kashmir, it was unwritten rule that the business class should not get affected. So that is why the tourists, those who come,
the economy
there may
should
be some
continue.
isolated incident, but never an attack like what had happened in Pahalgam.
So this can also isolate, basically, this can also alienate, whatever little sympathy there was with terrorists, because if your rosy roti goes, then, ideology goes
True.
out of the window when you have the way to eat.
Well,
But
but that is the surprising thing. As I told you, that for 20 years, there has been no attack on tourists. And then suddenly an attack on tourists, because as you're pointing out, that tourism is business. In Kashmir,
There is hardly
huge
anything else.
dependency on tourism. And the very fact that you have trashed tourism through this attack means that you don't give a damn about the locals, which actually reinforces the point that this is a Pakistani thing, not a local Kashmiri.
Right.
Because the Pakistanis keep on saying this is a freedom movement, this, that, and that kind of
Right.
stuff. But I'm saying that barring those 6 foreigners' business, which I told you about,
93.
no tourists have really been affected.
And
And
to
this-
such a point, like point blank to your face,
You
being
know,
shot.
yes.
And
because
this
you're-
was a deliberate. The foreign tourists were caught because we had just arrested Masood Azhar in 1993. There was 4 to 5 attempts to have Masood Azhar released, and this foreigners kidnap was one of them. And then finally, of course, IC 814 was hijacked,
Right.
and we had to release him. You see, but there were 4 or 5 attempts. That FT Delhi Financial Times guy, David Housego, his son was kidnapped in Pahalgam before that. So what I'm saying is that there has been a pattern there. With regard to security, you see, what I'd like to make one point. For a long time, when in this counter-insurgency thing, you had what is called a counter-insurgency grid. That is that the whole state is divided into a grid, okay? And there are points, there are nodal points from which you should be able to rush to a point in very quick time. So the army had this grid there, but 2020 has disrupted that grid.
After Galwan.
You see, after the Galwan incident, because India has moved a large number of forces to Ladakh. So this grid has been disrupted. Now, this is something which you can check out locally whether this has had an impact. Because of this, there is no reason otherwise. Because with the grid system, that you should they will themselves tell you that we can reach any incident point within so much time. There is what's called the QRT. The quick reaction teams can.
So that's not what it used to be.
So obviously, if it took 25-30 minutes for security forces to reach the meadow after the incident, that means they were nowhere there in sight.
So
That means they had no system was operating. There was no system in operation because of complacency. This is what I pointed out to you. There was a sense of complacency that tourists will not be attacked because they had not been attacked.
all the more
in the-
reason the
in the
Home Minister
past.
should be questioned.
In fact,
No, no doubt that the Home Minister, because don't forget he had held a security meeting just a couple of days before that.
Yeah.
In fact, Vijeta Singh of the Hindu has just put out that the nearest CRPF camp was 7 kilometers away, so it took them time. Army is saying that there was no specific input, and we were, as government policy, told to stay off tourist areas. So they were told to stay off tourist areas because I guess the focus is so much on pictures of normalcy that you don't want to see people armed,
And also it may freak them out.
freak them out also. But if there was such a infiltration happening, and if we've already seen incidents in Jammu, this decision also has to be questioned. That why was the army asked to stay off tourist areas? Why was there no input, especially on the back of the Prime Minister's visit? One thing I wanted to add was that I have never seen such an outpouring of public protests in Kashmir
By
after
locals.
a terror
Yeah,
incident.
that's new.
I don't think it's orchestrated. I think it is genuine. One, because I think people are genuinely shook by the fact that people were shot in the head point blank.
Just the ghastly nature
The
of it.
ghastly nature of it. But I think also there is, increasingly when you speak to Kashmiris, there is no charm or attraction to the idea of merging with Pakistan. And you pick that up very clearly because they see what has happened to Imran Khan. They see what's happening to that country. I don't think an average Kashmiri today looks at their future with Pakistan. That may not translate to an immediate affinity with India because they also get to hear how some BJP ministers said that now you can marry Kashmiri girls after the abrogation.
Yeah, but the economic
The
activities, I mean,
humiliation-
just to give you an idea, that Pakistan's GDP is 1/10 of India's,
Yeah.
and their per capita is half of ours. So
stories of tourists saying how they were helped by locals, I think despite the media getting visibly uncomfortable with it. I mean, at least on some channels, when eyewitnesses were coming and saying that, locals really helped us, they were just shut up. Okay, thank you, bye. Can you tell us what the terrorists did? So, but a lot of tourists have come out and said that we were really helped. We are thankful to the people.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. But very
And
little
also
of that
a
has been...
lot of protests, very spontaneous protests of people coming out and saying we reject this violence, we don't support it, we are not for it.
In fact, I do want to point out that markedly NDTV's coverage, Shivarur was there. I think it was the most fair amongst everybody. He was speaking to people who were talking about the economic activity. They want tourists there, they want normalcy. It wasn't like the typical Times and the other...
Or what Chitra of ABP was doing. ABVP.
Yeah, ABP was doing the same thing. But Manoj, I just want to kind of again re-ask you this one point, because I personally, I'd be a little surprised if that wasn't part of the, scenario planning. I mean, I don't know if India does it like, what are the outcomes, possible, modeling that they make. Like famously, when Taiwan-China standoff was at its peak, I think before Trump came during the Biden era, I had heard a foreign policy podcast where they had done some war gaming that if, China were to, because it carried out those exercises very close to Taiwan, if they were to actually cordon it off or something, how long before, let's say, it would escalate into nuclear war, how long before? So various scenario planning was done. Same thing with Russia, Ukraine. If the US were to actually, put boots on the ground, or, how long before it becomes a nuclear war? Do our government also do such scenario planning? And it's not, especially, senior thinkers and journalists like yourselves would not probably do it in life as a profession, but there's an inevitability to speculating of what the outcome is, because that is part of, I guess, what think tanks do. So I'd just like to ask you that, do you think a retaliatory action, whatever it may be, is inevitable one? And I'd like to, re-emphasize the point that, can India really discount what America thinks? Because all the times this has happened in the past, right from Indira Gandhi's time onwards, to Kargil, to more recently when, India struck, we know that when there are two nuclear armed states on a standoff, it is everybody's business. It's the world's business. So even if it doesn't make sense for Trump as a personality to give a damn about what's happening here, politically, it cannot be ignored. I mean, there will be some kind of pressure saying, guys, back off. If we take action, it's fine. You guys should not take action. What do you have to say on those aspects?
Well, you see, look at the action the government has taken. They have suspended the Indus Waters Treaty. Now, the interesting thing about that is that India does not have the means, the technical means to divert waters or to block waters at present.
Yeah.
So this is, in a sense, a kind of a slow-moving retaliation.
Okay.
Now, the point is that if you are Pakistan...
So one second, we don't have the capacity to stop the water.
We don't have dams or reservoirs to store
we don't have.
So we've just said we'll stop water, but we can't.
No. What I'm saying is that we have announced it, but the point is that if we build over the next 10 years, we can build dams, canals, etc.
Nothing immediately can happen.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is nothing immediately can happen. Maybe most of what you're permitted in the treaty is what is called run of the river. Those three western rivers, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, the waters are promised to Pakistan. 80% of the Indus waters are promised to Pakistan, 20% to India. Okay, that is the Ravi, Satluj, and Beas. Now, what you can do in those western rivers is make run of the river dams, meaning the river can't be blocked, but you can generate hydroelectricity. But the point is, instead of run of the river, if you just raise those dams a bit, you'll be impounding a bit of water, which will be water which can't go to Pakistan. Now, there's a limit to what you can do, because otherwise you'll end up flooding Kashmir itself.
Yeah.
You see, because if you dam the Jhelum, you know how the Jhelum operates out there.
Correct.
The water will have to be stored somewhere. But the point is, even if you reduce in one point, you make a canal and take the water away down somewhere else, that's that much water less for Pakistan.
But this doesn't have the deterrence or the optics of a strike.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a strike, but the point is that it's a slow strangulation.
Sure.
You
But
see?
would that be acceptable politically? Modi would have to do more,
It would
right?
be too slow.
See, what I'm trying to say is that what you have done is to place your hands around the necks of Pakistan. Okay? But that itself is quite an alarming thing. I mean, if I'm the guy who, someone's put his hand around my neck, I'll worry. Pakistan is worried. So they've given a nuclear threat in response. They've said that we will respond in a full spectrum. That those words, full spectrum, for any strategic thing means that they,
The nuclear option is on the
up
table.
to the nuclear option is on the table. Now, the point that I'd like to make is that this is the first move in the chess game. Other moves can be there. You can use diplomacy to get the United States, Saudi Arabia, UAE, who are also friends of Pakistan, to tell Pakistan, guys, the Indians are serious. You better do something. You see? So I'm just saying that that's the diplomatic maneuver. Now, you can also simultaneously be planning a military thing. Now, what would the military thing be? The problem is that the last two military strikes were not particularly effective. The Balakot strike, we missed the target. The so-called surgical strikes were too shallow, to make an impact.
And the Abhinandan incident didn't exactly.
So I'm saying you missed the target. That's the most important thing. And then you, in the clash, you lost an aircraft. So the military thing is not an easy one. You see, the Pakistan military, from the defensive point of view, it's quite strong. They have along the border, etc. They're quite, but you can always lob a missile, and then be satisfied with it.
For the longest time, firing mortar shells was a regular function.
But now technically there's a ceasefire, and that remains on the line of control. But what I'm saying is that is hardly a deterrent.
Right.
See, how do you deter? How do you your challenge is, how do you deter Pakistan? And here they've got sufficient cannon fodder to keep on sending them into Kashmir and creating this mayhem.
I mean, I
The
guess
final aim has to be to dismantle Lashkar. I mean, can
Yes.
that happen?
I think a
But
combination.
Lashkar and Jaish-e-Mohammed.
I think it
See,
has-
Can
Lashkar-
that happen?
I think it has
How
to be a
do you do it?
combination of identifying where significant offices of these outfits are,
Those officers don't matter.
and being able to, for the optics,
Yeah,
being able
for
to
the
take those out,
optics,
bomb those. We've destroyed the
For
headquarters.
the optics, if you can lob a missile on Muridke, where
some-
the Lashkar headquarters is concerned, that's quite possible. Or in Bhavalpur, if you know where Hafiz Mohammed, Jaish-e-Mohammed chief is,
Right.
is
take him out
Masood
or
Azhar is residing. But that you need the kind of intelligence, continuous intelligence, which the United States has.
and whether they'll share it with you or not is the question.
that's
And
the-
I think this is the time to prove how close Mr. Modi is with the international community.
You
that
see, you
he's
look
been
at
claiming all this
how
time.
they killed Zawahiri. Literally, he was out on his first floor balcony.
Yeah,
He
and they
opened the balcony, and a bomb came to him.
Right, yeah.
You see?
I mean, I think
Or
this...
how they killed Qasim Soleimani, the Iranian general.
Yeah.
In fact, it was inside a building in his apartment, right?
yeah,
It was that specific. I mean, of course, this is the time. The proof is in the pudding that Mr. Modi's friendship and rapport with all these people. But on one thing, Anand, if you could comment historically, what Manoj spoke about strangulating. Now, if we were to actually break this down into specifics, that impacts a large chunk of the population of Pakistan. Historically, has such sanctions, which actually impact the population of a nation, been a deterrent to the people who are governing, in fact, in countries like Pakistan, ruling? Because North Korea, all the sanctions in the world doesn't impact Kim Jong's lifestyle. So none of his decisions, no sanction makes any difference. Iran, the public can starve to death.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's a democracy that they'll vote out, the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah's decisions doesn't matter. You can sanction them. You can starve the population to death. So this strangulation, it's not like the generals will stop drinking Scotch whiskey and the finest wine. I mean, I don't believe in warped democracies like Pakistan. Even India is far from a perfect democracy. I don't see any historical evidence that such actions make any difference to the decision making
But,
of those in
you know,
power
the-
because it doesn't impact their lives.
See, here the thing is that you look at the threat to terminate the treaty. 80% of Pakistani agriculture is dependent on waters that come from India. Their drinking water supplies. I wouldn't be surprised if this summer, and like all summers, there's a reduction in flow. Right now, because of the glacier melt, the waters are high. The waters start coming down. In this summer, if there's a water shortages in Pakistan, you're going to have people saying that the Indians have done it.
Sure.
The Indians are doing.
They'll just blame you irrespective.
Indians are doing something. So yes, a certain pressure does develop out of this. So I'm saying this is just one instrument, but one instrument, if it carried to the logical end, meaning if India says that okay, we have begun in these 3 projects, we are raising the dam, the size of the dam by a meter.
Right.
See, that itself, and Pakistan's problem is that they have Tarbela Dam and the Mangala Dam, 2 dams, but they are not even able to impound more than 10% of the waters that they're supposed to get. They just don't have the capacity to store the water.
Right.
So
there's,
what I'm saying is, it's a very lethal kind of a thing. But as I said, and you rightly pointed out, are the people who make the decisions, because unless you be able to hit them, and you can't, India can't hit, meaning we can't take out Asim Munir like the Americans took out Qasim Soleimani. That's an impossible situation. But I think it will have to be a combination of military threat, military action maybe, but small level, skirmish, strike, as well as diplomacy. I think, one of the most successful things, and I'll give you this example, Mumbai 2008.
right.
Now we know that Hafiz Mohammad Saeed, Zakir Rahman Lakhvi, various other people, and the actual guy who planned all this, Sajid Mir, were involved in this in Pakistan. 2 ISI officers, Samir Ali and Major Iqbal. We got hold of Kasab. The only guy we managed to lay our hands on was Kasab, so he was tried and hung. Now, when it comes to these other fellows in Pakistan, we were shouting from 2008 down to 2020, nothing happened. Then came what is called the Financial Action Task Force. And the Financial Action Task Force threatened to put Pakistan in a blacklist. Under that blacklist, Pakistan would stop getting loans from the IMF, and they would be trashed in the world financial markets. So suddenly the Pakistanis tried Hafiz Mohammad Saeed for money laundering, not for the Mumbai thing, for money laundering, and sentenced him to 30 years. Suddenly they found Zakir Rahman Lakhvi and they sentenced him to 5 years. They found, and of all wonders, Sajid Mir, the guy who may be an ISI officer, who was the actual planner. The Pakistanis had claimed for years that he was dead or he's not missing. Suddenly they found him and they have sentenced him to jail. I don't know for how many years.
Yeah, but again,
That sentencing, does it mean anything? Because they're all
no.
operating
So
from...
what I'm trying to say is that through this diplomatic financial process, they were hit. So if we can manage, if our diplomacy is effective, we say that we are now a rising power. We have got lots of clout. Mr. Modi is a friend of Putin. He's a friend of Trump.
Donald Trump.
He's a friend of
And Jaishankar has laser eyes that
and
can...
he's a
pierce
friend
through.
of Saudi King.
MBS.
He got award from the UAE Crown Prince. So what I'm saying is we do have sufficient diplomatic clout. Do we have the diplomatic tactics which can pin down Pakistan in such a way like the FATF? As I said, FATF may not have been entirely satisfactory, meaning those guys should have been hung. But the point is the fact that the Pakistanis were forced to acknowledge
some action happened. Okay, whatever
has happened, and it has happened through diplomatic means.
All right. So Anand, if you could come in, just one thing. There's no way to audit this, but I'd really like at some stage there to be an audit that under Mr. Shah, my assumption is he knows more about what's happening in the newsrooms around the country and in opposition party offices whether it is through his intelligence gatherings, whether it's through Pegasus or whatever else, than he knows what's happening on the borders, because I don't think there is any incentive, I repeat, for them to perform at that level. If your intention is only to stay in power, your entire resources are, let me use my intelligence gathering that which person can be broken from Uddhav Sena, which person can be broken from this Sena. That is your intelligence gathering. There is no other intelligence gathering that's happening. But, on the war gaming and the scenario planning, do you don't like to speculate, I know, Anand, but give it a shot. Do you think it's inevitable that we have to strike? There is no option, whether it's politically or even just as a deterrence to Pakistan. This slow strangulation, I get the point. It can have a significant impact in the long run. But as an immediate deterrence, something like this, I'd be surprised if we were just to sit and wait for the, water, scarcity to hit in.
The government now in power, it prides itself on its credentials, or say its advertisement of its credentials on national security. So it will take it more seriously to at least project what it is doing. So having said that, I come back to the point Mr. Joshi was making. There can be a combination of other forms of deterrence, like the approach that Pakistan takes of managed escalation. That's a thing that you have to do with if you are a nuclear power. Uh, uh, like what India did, that we are putting Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. So Pakistan's response is that it will it will be taken as an act of war if the water doesn't flow. Okay, putting it in abeyance, but we will see if it actually put into practice and water does not flow. We will take it as an act of war. That is what Pakistan Foreign Office has said yesterday. So obviously it has a kind of deterrence for Pakistani establishment, means they are taking it seriously. Whether in the popular imagination of the people here, that would be also be a
Is that enough or not?
concern for the government
Politically,
here. So,
yeah.
second is that isolating Pakistan diplomatically, that is a tougher challenge, because there are a group of countries which even Pakistan can manage to convince its case. Third would be, of course, the say that though there is not a significant trade between the two countries, but India has already done it, that severing all the trade ties. So
Yeah.
that is the third deterrence. But yes, you are right that these two, the trade one as well as the Indus one, it does not have the same effect on, say, public perception that a direct military demonstration of a deterrence does. So we will have to see what combination the government resorts to, but it will have, and the world powers would be more interested. I am coming back to the phrase, to see that it's a managed escalation.
Right. So before I come to Raman sir, I know Mr. Joshi has to go. Any closing thoughts? Because we've kept you for an hour already. Any closing views on how this could possibly be handled, or whether the foreign policy outcomes or the local national defense outcomes of this? Because one person who has been missing from the headlines has been our defense minister on this issue. It's all about
Defense
Amit Shah and
Minister
Modi.
has threatened also.
Yesterday there were headlines that he is also.
He is also
That is also threatened.
You see, the thing is that we are in a particular situation. The relative power between us and Pakistan. When you talk to others, I also did this kind of a thing with some foreign channels yesterday, and there is always a tendency to equate India and Pakistan. We are unable to get away from that equation and to try to convince the world that it is India, which I keep telling people that from 1980s onwards, we have been suffering from terrorism which is coming from across the border in Pakistan. It's one thing today to say that Kashmir, there's a freedom movement.
Hmm.
But what was there in Khalistan?
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is that somehow or the other, the Pakistanis have got a free pass. They got a free pass during that Khalistan thing because of the Afghanistan. The West needed them for Afghanistan. So then it has come to Kashmir. Again, Afghanistan continued. So Musharraf played them well in that case. So the thing is that there is a challenge before us, a security challenge, because of what is happening. We can't sit by idly when these kind of things happen. When a massacre happens, you have to retaliate. Now we have been, mind you, there have been covert retaliation. We know that people have been killed in Pakistan. So it's not that our people are not doing something. They are doing something, but it is probably not sufficient.
Right.
Meaning, if those shootings reach a higher level, for example, the Israelis knocked out Mohsin Fakhrizadeh, who was the top nuclear scientist, by that AI operated machine gun, in this thing. And then I've told you about Qasim Soleimani. So what I'm saying is that there has to be a combination, meaning we're faced with a security problem. So there has to be a combination of covert action, overt action, as well as diplomacy. How to combine all this? Now, this is where, when you say Home Minister, what's he doing? So yes, it's his job. Meaning it's his job, or you want to say that the Home Minister sheds all this and lets Mr. Doval handle it. But Mr. Doval is okay in tactical handling. Mr. Doval doesn't have a reputation for strategic handling. You need someone to handle this at a strategic level, and also a sense of urgency. In the sense, for too long, our strategy when Manmohan Singh was there, our strategy was that we would reduce the level of violence, which he managed. The level of violence did come down. So there are two strategies. One is that you can't have an absolute break. The Pakistan can't suddenly overnight become a very good state and not support terrorism. So there is a strategy in which the levels of violence comes down slowly. You see, what has happened now is that there is no policy happening. That since 2020,
it's not a thought through policy. There is what is your desired outcome and what you're doing to achieve that desired outcome.
See, 2020, when we after that 2019 drawing down of derogation of Article 370, those were egregious actions. They were there only for the party.
Yeah, it was basically more pandering to your local base rather than any
party level, because party had from 1950 taken up the issue of Article 370. But that 370 has created a problem. Meaning Kashmir was under police rule has been under police rule for 5 years now, increasing police rule. So when you look at all these different elements, you find failure. You find failure of government policy in Kashmir. You find failure of government policy in dealing with these issues. Meaning, till now, there was a sense of complacency that you saw the last year's action, Riyasi killings, various, what Manisha was pointing out to the different actions that the Pakistani infiltrators were taking. The nature, the quality of the infiltrators has also gone up enormously, and the very fact that it's very
technology
difficult
that they have access to and how they operate.
Yes, because nowadays, you can't. They've been using, for example, local internet for communications. See, we are unable to catch them. For example, these guys in Pahalgam, why haven't we caught them till now? How many days have elapsed?
You can't GPS them. You can't.
You see? No. I'm just saying that you launch a manhunt. There's supposed to have been 6 people involved. And this is an area where security forces have been operating for years.
Right.
So it's not exactly...
And we are nowhere closer to
even when you talk of jungles in Poonch and all that, security forces have been operating there.
They should
These
be
are not... My father was in Poonch in 1947. We were fighting in the jungles of Poonch. So the thing is that in this case, the combination has not worked. Meaning you've not been able to combine covert action, diplomacy and kinetic action effectively.
Right. So before we were to thank you and say goodbye, we'd like you to give a recommendation to our viewers and listeners on something that could enrich their lives or make them more aware. It could be about anything, not necessarily about Kashmir or Pakistan.
I can say even in the issue that happened, I'm not sure whether you know that I have authored a study of the first 10 years of Kashmir militancy,
I see.
which was
Okay.
published by Penguin in 1999 and it was republished in 2019.
Mhm.
So I've looked at Kashmir militancy in great detail.
Right. So the book Manoj is talking about is called The Lost Rebellion, Kashmir in the 90s. You can read that. You'll get a very informed view. But I must say, Manoj, what you're saying that this is the way to deal with it is very it's very different from the other foreign policy experts that we have heard, like Sohail Seth, Arnab Goswami, Anand Ranganathan.
He's like, how am I in the
I
same?
don't know if you've been watching the media. I don't even know half those jokers who appear. They are just sitting on channel and saying, forget
them."
human rights. Who gives a shit about due process? Give them. So the good thing is that at least in the popular media, the kind of experts that we get, the Sohail Seth, Arnab Goswami variety, maybe Mr. Shah listens to them more. But I'm hoping voices like Manoj Joshi's reach more people to understand how this thing works.
Well, I cited you, Martin Van Crevel, who's an Israeli military historian, very well known.
Hmm.
And he has said, he looked at various insurgencies and how they were handled. And he basically pointed out to the difference between the way the British handled Northern Ireland and the Syrians handled the Islamist militancy in Homs when Assad destroyed the whole town.
Mhm.
So the point is, you want complete end to the insurgency, you've got to go the right way. It's a slow way, but you've got to go the right way. You have to win the hearts and minds of people. Why is it that phrase hearts and minds constantly comes up?
Yeah. But it's been ridiculed enough. Anyway, we'll talk about that some other time. And thank you so much for joining us, Manoj. It's been a pleasure. Before we move forward, just want to remind you of our subscriber meet on the 3rd of May in Chennai. Write to us at subscriptions@thenewsminute.com. Dhanya will be there, Shabir will be there, as will Jayashree. And we're having a subscriber meet in Chennai on May 3rd. So, Raman, sir, you were saying, something about the meadows being open for a while. It's not a new development.
No, I had gone 4 years ago. It was open.
Yeah, a lot of
It
people
was
are saying
open.
they've opened in March,
I
February.
had
It's
I
always
had
been open.
driven.
So it's not a new thing.
No.
No, like this whole narrative that they were opened specially by a tour operator without permission doesn't seem to be actually what's happening on the
In fact,
ground.
we were also
It's a
told
very
that
common picnic spot.
the base camp also, for Amarnath Yatra, it starts somewhere, from that place.
Hmm.
No, I mean, since you were talking about Arnab Goswami, so Screamer,
The media.
Screamer in Chief
Hmm.
is going to deliver a keynote address at Stanford
What?
this week. And
Arnab?
Arnab Goswami. And there are many other people who have gone to Stanford. I have just come to know. And the ticket to this function is $150
Hmm.
if you want to attend. So Mr. Anand Goswami will be delivering the keynote address. So, what I wanted to say about this, that episodic military, deterrence will not work. We have done it in the past also.
Yeah.
If something happens, the knee-jerk response is attack
But
somewhere.
it works for him for domestic politics.
Yeah.
It did. I mean, let's
Yes.
face it, in his
Yeah,
second term,
2019 could not have been those numbers without
those
the
numbers
surgical
without
strike.
the
Ah.
surgical strike is what basically made Mr. Modi
No,
popular.
so
again.
maybe they can do the similar kind of exercise. Already, the TV media and even the newspaper, it has come out that the Indian Air Force is active.
Hmm.
Our Navy is active. So, but I think if you look at the water treaty which has been put in abeyance at the moment, is the immediate effect is they have been sharing the water flow, the chart and everything. So India is going to stop that completely.
Right.
Okay, so that is also it acts like a deterrence. Maybe it will take a little time, And as you were talking about whether Trump is going to jump in, I think this is a slow but firm approach, as a deterrence, and I think it should work in a in a time when there are two nuclear powers.
Yeah, I mean,
They are in conflict.
I mean,
So
historically, it's the world's problem. If two nuclear powers are in conflict, it's the world's problem. It's not just ours and Pakistan's problem. I
yes,
think that's
yes.
given. But when it comes to how the media has been, kind of, I was the day this happened, I was watching TV at night. Luckily, the advantage of being the CEO of Newslaundry, back when we had started, I used to watch news almost every day. Ever since we have Manisha and her team, I don't watch it at all.
We just
Oh.
need to watch them.
I just watched them, but I did watch it the night of, when this actually happened, and I was blown away by the commentators who are these morons? I mean, having morons as anchors is bad enough. These so-called experts, some random, B-grade film director from Bombay telling us how we should react. Sohail Seth telling us how we should react.
This has been going on and on and on, and Pakistan is not going to change its stripes. It is a rogue country. Rogue countries have to be treated in a roguish manner. You cannot use the windows of diplomacy and decency for absolute rascal nations like Pakistan is.
ये
No
लोकल
doubt
सपोर्ट
about
के
it.
बगैर नहीं, लोकल सपोर्ट के बगैर पॉसिबल नहीं होता है, ये आप मान के चल लीजिए। कश्मीर की सिचुएशन का मापदंड टूरिज्म से नहीं हो सकता। ये हम लोग कश्मीरी पंडितों ने बार-बार चीख-चीख के कहा है कि ये जो सांप है वहां पर, ये जो नाग है वहां पर, ये जो टेररिस्ट है, जिस दिन ये चाहेगा गोली चलाकर आपका खात्मा करना, ये करेगा, आप उसको रोक नहीं सकते, क्योंकि ये इतना अंदर घुस चुका है।
अगर आप शांति चाहते हैं कश्मीर में, तो लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल के दूसरी तरफ खून बहना जरूरी है, उसके बिना होगा नहीं। जब तक ये पाकिस्तानी पंजाबी फौज है, जब तक पाकिस्तानी पंजाबी फौज की लाशें उनके गांव में नहीं पहुंचेंगी, वहां से रोने चीखने चिल्लाने की आवाजें नहीं आएंगी, जब तक उनको सेंस ऑफ पर्सनल लॉस नहीं होगा, कश्मीर जलता रहेगा। और ये बात मैं दसियों सालों से कह रहा हूं।
You will now listen to the screams. अब तुम्हारा अंजाम बहुत बुरा होगा. You will pray to God and Allah कि तुम्हें जल्दी से जल्दी उठा ले, क्योंकि तुम्हारा जीना दुबर करना हमारा काम है. And we want to teach you a lesson. And if you are putting allegation that you are warmongering, yes, so be it. We want it.
Before we wind up, any commentary on how the media covered this? You were saying something.
Nah,
before.
and the best was I was watching this News 18, where the I think the main anchor who comes at 9 I forget names, 9 o'clock, the prime time, who gives on News 18 English. So
Jata
this,
Jacob.
Jacob was there. He said something. He asked a question to Ravi, this Shiv Shankar. So both of them were competing. Who is more
belligerent.
aggressive?
Who? Rahul Shiv Shankar.
So
he was a
Rahul-
panelist. No, wait.
Oh, they
he
were
was-
co-anchoring.
There were
co-anchor.
three anchors.
Okay.
So three guys. So Rahul was one of them. So Jacob asked something, and Rahul, I mean, they were competing with each other. So Rahul Shiv Shankar, he says, the question is, what happened? What was happening before that? So all of a sudden he reminds, I mean, if he's talking about they did not take any, I mean, this intelligence failure. He wasn't aware of. So I can see very clearly, he just prolonged that talk, and then very silently he put in, there was intelligence failure also. So, but
No,
very
it's embarrassing.
sheepishly.
It is so, and I think this is an instance where I think the public is seeing through
Yeah.
the media, because in the past, even people who normally are very pro government, I've at least the people I've spoken to on the groups I am on, they're very disgusted with how the media is completely giving a free pass. And it would be okay if they would give a free pass. How they're questioning others, whether it is journalists, whether it is, or the Supreme Court. Will the Supreme Court answer? Has Arnab gone mad? What does the Supreme Court do with this?
No, what Mr. Joshi was saying, that the two strikes were a failure. Now we know that one we missed and the other was not deep enough. But look at the celebration around that. That is literally the BJP's centerpiece. Every election rally we've gone, there's not a single rally that doesn't make a mention of surgical strikes. And unfortunately, BJP is a party that, to solve something like Kashmir or to even figure out what our response to Pakistan should be, you really need people who can think solidly in national interest. And the BJP time and again shows that it can only think in party interest. So every coverage that we have seen, even after this, the channels are home ministers rushing to Pahalgam. This has never happened before. ऐसा कहीं होम मिनिस्टर वहां खुद जाके एक गार्डियन के तौर पे खड़े रहेंगे तो कितना कॉन्फिडेंस. दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ coverage that is happening around Amit Shah simply landing up at a place where he should be there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the worst terror attack that we've seen in 20 years. And you can tell that all this is managed, we know now. I mean, the focus is simply on, and which is why I'm very cynical about what may come out of this. The focus is mostly on just saying what an action mode Modi and Amit Shah have shown us.
Yeah.
They can do something small. It will be celebrated like it's the best thing that no one has ever
Just
done.
already nothing has happened, and you see the images that they put. Modi ne dikhai aankh, फड़फड़ाया और चिलचिलाया और whatever, थरथराया Pakistan. Like, it is insane. It is shameful. It is just so disgraceful.
And you're right, as a record of the home minister, it should really be
Dude,
looked in.
Amit
Like,
Shah
what
has
has
such a C-grade home minister record. Not just this. You just see his stint as home
Manipur,
minister. No one can
big
question
thing.
him. He has no interest to perform. Why will he perform? No one can question him inside the party or outside the party. Even inside the party, there's no pressure on Amit Shah. Earlier governments, the home minister, they would be politicking within the party. Right now, within the party, there's politicking how they can cut each other than Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah. बाकी सब एक दूसरे को काटने के चक्कर में है. Be under no illusion that that's not happening. But he has no incentive to perform.
And when you look at the BJP, the one thing that I do think they could take credit on, or at least build on, is the fact that when was the last time you saw Kashmir erupt in protests against what has happened, a terror attack?
No, sorry.
But you can build on that. But you see what the BJP guys are doing in mainland. They're upset with anyone saying that the locals helped. They're trolling anyone who's saying that, people, locals came
They
out.
want
and
that enmity.
And the rhetoric again all over TV channels is to just set aside what Navika Kumar at least said that on a debate. We have to set aside these things because we must set aside decency, and it's impossible to be decent if you have to condemn terror. So I'm saying that even to build on that fact that locals have come out in support, and locals have very categorically said that we distance ourselves from what is happening. We are against Pakistan. A party would at least think in national interest to build on that. But here a party is just focused on how we can now use this to, score Hindutva points in mainland India.
And eruption doesn't mean that there was no dissent. I think people have become more alienated.
That is also a fact.
That is for nothing for their credit. I think their internal policy has failed massively. And as this happens, so they have a national narrative of the communal. So it fits, na? I mean, this incident fits into their narrative.
वो religion पूछ के मारा. So
It fits into their narrative. My society, they had a meeting yesterday at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And so few people gathered and Bharat Mata ki jai or Pakistan Murdabad. So it is already happening. So that, I mean, obviously, I mean, this
and
incident.
for today's news channels also only focus, see, the fact that Hindus were targeted, their names were asked, they were asked to recite Kalma. This is the first immediate fact that we know of what has happened. You report it, and then you also go on to ask questions about how the attack happened. None of that has happened.
It's just that
We're
is
stuck on just the most obvious fact of the attack.
Intelligence
feeds-
failure,
it
nobody
feeds
is
into-
No,
questioning.
yeah, there's nothing about
Nobody
intelligence.
is questioning.
You want any closing thoughts before we move on to the mails, Anand?
No, I am not sure with Mr. Joshi's assessment that all military strikes were failure. So, because the objectives may be multiple, it's not only that
Optics also.
Optics.
no optics, not only popular democratic political optics, but across the border also showing decisiveness. We were coming to a point where before say around 2010-11, the indecision to use the military option was very clear. So it was coming from a point of indecision that also sells whether you
Are prepared to use force. or
you
not.
are successful or not, but
But you're prepared to use it.
but it sends a signal to Pakistan that military option is not off the table. So and also it not India, means a combination of factors always is there. You also do something to flex your military muscle. That's why even what is called armed peace means, that's why so many countries have armies. So second point is that I wanted to make it that just a day before this incident, there was a piece which has been generally a general understanding among foreign policy observers. Nirupama Rao, our former foreign secretary, made a speech at George Washington University, which was put together as a piece in the Hindu, and she said that her point was that we are now seeing everything through China prism. So even Pakistan is off the radar. Means there seems to be and everything. So we are in a situation of a two-front military hostility. Her piece was on China, but her point was about that competitive coexistence with China, the challenges and all things. But just this also, this complacency is an offshoot of that. Means and he in fact tangentially pointed out that the Galwan incident, the moving of troops, and
Right.
this also now this is a challenge that we have to come to. We have to come to terms with how to manage this two-front hostility.
But also, there's a shortfall of about 100,000
Army.
Jawans plus officers.
What Major General G.D. Bakshi made a point of on Arnab's show.
Okay, he did.
He really
So,
slammed
I mean,
into
and that is so. I mean, the coordination, like I said, I think if there are only two people who are powerful in the government, and one of them is always trying to figure out the best angle for his mugshot and traveling abroad and showing how close he is, and the other one's intelligence is directed at journalists and opposition parties, no one else is doing anything, right? I mean, no other cabinet minister is empowered to do anything. So,
Even
anyway.
the press persons are not, press photographers are not supposed to take those mugshots. So he has a battery of 8 to 10 photographers
they-
hired.
their
They are the ones who take it.
and they will send you.
So they run it as either as a ANI, I mean, whichever agency they want,
So
or
they'll give
it comes from the PM.
So, right, on that note, we will just get to the emails. As you know, we have a new system of taking your feedback. Week-wise, we have a roster where one person on the Hafta curates 4 emails, and the rest that are collected will be read out together in a special feedback email episode. That is going to be next week. Every 6th week that will happen. This week's emails have been curated by Raman Kirpal. You can mail us at podcasts@newslaundry.com. I repeat, podcasts@newslaundry.com. Your mail will definitely be read. Please keep it below 150 words, because otherwise it just becomes impossible for us to read as many as we would like. And it will be addressed in the 6th episode, but 4 emails will be addressed in at least every episode. So I will read out the ones that Raman sir has curated this week.
Or I'll read them.
Yeah. So Manisha will read out the ones that Raman sir has curated this week.
So we shall be reading out the letters, but just to make a note of this, we also received letters from N747, Pranit, RS, Venkat, Dipankar, and one anonymous letter, which we'll read out in the Hafta Letters episode, which will release in the next 2 weeks. Next week it'll release. I think we'll record it next week.
We'll
so
record
release
next
it.
week, correct.
So Harnik Singh says, I enjoy all podcasts like Abhinandan. I consume most of my content through podcasts. YouTube is only for nuisance and tippani. In last Hafta Letter special, one subscriber complained that he gets annoyed when Sudipto Mondal brings caste in every discussion in South Central. I feel we privileged upper caste people don't want to think about caste angle in India. Even Modi said people are talking about castes want to divide India, I think. This upper caste mentality is very disturbing. Caste is Indian society's reality and we should discuss it whenever we can. Even NL team don't give due regard about caste issues. I would request NL to make a special caste/Dalit issues desk which document, report, discuss about these issues. NL should have a weekly podcast dedicated to just these issues. Hindutva Sena project should also work on stories of how Dalit voices are being ignored, suppressed, mutilated today.
Point noted, although with the News Minute and Newslaundry becoming more or less one entity, we can assume that Sudipto's, what's your ism, is a part of the Newslaundry. In fact, it is hosted on our YouTube channel and our podcast as well.
Asha says, Dear Team Newslaundry, I appreciate the work you all are doing. I first found Newslaundry through Awful and Awesome, then started consuming Hafta, Nuisance, and recently Reporters Without Orders. Now my weekly routine includes Hafta, Awful and Awesome, Tippany, and South Central, as I'm always interested in political news but miss South coverage. I listen to Charcha, but only when Anand is on the panel. Initially, I didn't like Anand's views, maybe because they were different, but over time, I started appreciating how they gave me a perspective I hadn't considered. So, if time permits, Anand, please be on Charcha more often. Best wishes to Abhinandan, Manisha, and the entire team. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Ankur Jalan says, I greatly appreciate NL's recent work on air pollution in Delhi, BJP RSS Hindutva project, and police atrocities across all states in India. Thanks to NL for finally reading my last letter. I have further views on Anand's take on BJP and Hindutva politics, which he has hardly denounced. He's saying, I grew up in Calcutta. I studied most of the kings and rulers from the medieval India. I read about Shivaji and his heroics. While mentioning Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, Anand mentioned that Bankim was writing against Muslim rule, especially the history is more grey. His writings could well be interpreted as against any foreign rule, be it Mughal or British. It should be read in context of the period when Indian nationalism was growing. Though Anand said Aurangzeb's rule was the most violent in the world history, as per his favorite historian, he is ignoring Ashoka's ghastly and violent conquest of Kalinga, which eventually changed Ashoka. Has Anand heard of Belgian monarch Leopold II's barbaric brutality in Congo? There are many, like Hitler, Stalin, etc., from 20th century itself. Coming to Hafta 528, Anuj Chaudhary, the CEO of Sambhal, has consistently been partisan public servant. People have seen him carrying mace during Hanuman Jayanti. It's not the first time he's been in controversies. Policeman is clearly trying to appease his political masters. Anand must not defend the CEO again, and it shows that he supports Hindutva and BJP's policy, your support for the CEO. I have also opinion about the 66 crore devotees flocking to Kumbh. And how there's a lot of pointed questions that
To
Anand.
Anand,
How Anand.
this mail is question to Anand. So
Anand's defense
but
of.
this has violated the word count,
Yeah.
so that is as much as we'll read.
But I don't think you said he's the. You didn't say Aurangzeb
So,
was
I
the
mean,
most violent. You said even from his
I mean,
contemporaries he's violent.
I think he is determined to see me in a particular light which he is entitled to. But I am just clarifying some of the points that he has made. So, about Bankim Chand Chatterjee, first Anand Math. So, before coming to the specific of that reference, you should know that Bankim Chand Chatterjee's Anand Math, written in 1882, is about its a central plot is about the Sannyasi rebellion of late 18th century, and the rebellion was of Hindu monks as well as Muslim ascetics, the fakirs, against the East India Company, that the oppressive taxation and other things. So this there is a collaboration, but the East India Company and the Muslim rulers collaborating with them, they are somehow in the novel they are fused together. So Bankim Chand Chatterjee English version and the original Bengali version are different. This I came to know when around 2018 I had gone to Kolkata to on a teaching assignment, and some of my colleagues there were talking among themselves that the Bengali version of Bankim Chand Chatterjee's Anand Math is very different from what English translation is. So, but I forgot. Then I, some years later, read this comment of Upanyu Chatterjee, the novelist and the former bureaucrat, and in Open Magazine in 4th July 2018, this is Upanyu Chatterjee saying, and he is very unambiguous about his reading experience of the Bengali version of Anand Math and the English version. And he is saying, reading Bankim Chand Chattopadhyay's Anand Math in Bengali has proved to be a real eye-opener. Chatterjee says, it is so right-wing and virulently anti-Muslim. I realized that its translation I had read earlier in English, each time there is an anti-Muslim reference has been changed to anti-British.
Oh,
This is one of the things I would have never got if I had just read it in English. Let us say there are thousands of people who will read the English translation only and think this is a great anti-British, anti-imperialist work. He is one of the founding fathers of Bengali literature, but in this work he is so anti-Muslim. So this is Upmanyu Chatterjee. So I don't know Bengali language. I can't read, but from responsible people who have read it in the two versions.
And he's a credible voice.
So
I think
so
Upmanyu
that is
definitely
what
credible.
I get.
Sure.
So that there is difference between its Bengali version and the English version. So that is my point. That's how I came to that conclusion. If it is from secondary sources, but that's how I
Fair
came.
enough.
Second, no, it's a long
Oh, there are
one.
others also.
Yes. So he says that I didn't talk about Ashok because Ashok was not being talked about. The point was about Aurangzeb.
Achha, the most violent.
No, most violent I didn't say. That is that he is putting.
I don't think you said most violent.
Putting words in my mouth. I didn't quantify violence of other. Also, Ashok we were not talking about. We were talking about Aurangzeb. If I would have talked about Ashok, I would have been accused of whataboutery. So and that's why. And I am not accusing him of whataboutery, because I think people who talk about whataboutery don't understand it. It is sometimes very silly, but sometimes it is very sincere also.
And it's about context.
On context, because whataboutery is related to fairness, which is a very foundational element of
I think
justice.
context is very important.
So-
Anything is not whataboutery.
So Ashok, many readers think that why Ashok is in the national emblem, and the founding fathers of our republic put him there. He was violent and this. But the arc of Ashok as an emperor is very different from after Kalinga what he became. In Nehru's view of him in Discovery of India is more in light of he has not written it, but you can get it, and also he agreed with putting him on the national emblem is of what Plato thought as a philosopher king. Like a king who had in fact we were talking about India Pakistan in Tashkent Treaty. Lal Bahadur Shastri, on Rajaji's recommendation, put an Ashokan element, and he said that All India Radio, the state radio there then, and the Pakistan radio had propaganda war. So he said the Ashokan edicts of propaganda that spread the kind of propaganda which talks about the mutual harmony between enemies. So and in 1972 Simla agreement, Indira Gandhi took that element of Ashok on his edicts had put all the say figures of the people who he had captured in Kalinga who were injured on edicts, and that became one of the foundational elements for exchange of prisoner of war.
Interesting.
So Indira Gandhi put the Ashokan element in that. So I think yes, he was violent, but Nehru fashioned him in terms of a Platonic philosopher king, and that CEO I didn't defend. You didn't get the contest. In fact I said that his action was illegal. You listen to it again. There are other points also, but for the time.
Soma Shekhar says, I tend to agree with the views of almost everyone on NL Hafta, but these days I agree the most with Sudipto, particularly because of his caste angle in every issue. I think gender inequality has more relevance for lower income population. Lack of employment has more relevance to marginalized caste population. I see most of my friends support charities which serve a specific caste or religious population. I do recall being not allowed to watch a movie with my friend in 12th standard as he's from a lower caste or lower income. Have a request to Sudipto. Can you suggest few charities which work towards upliftment of Dalit community? Request to the entire panel, please revisit the scene from Article 15 movie where his junior policeman tries to explain about the different subcastes
Yeah,
to
I remember
Ayushmann
that scene.
Khurrana. We can send this mail to Sudipto
Yeah.
and he can maybe write to you with recommendations on where you can.
Yes, we'll do that. We'll share this with Sudipto.
Nayati has written a 547 word mail, which we shall not read all of. But to paraphrase it, she's first said that on the cleanliness question, she said that governments, be it local councillors or panchayats, need to employ people to clean every day along with cleaning gear. She says that one of the reasons why we have this problem is because of caste. We don't think it's our job to clean, and we think that people who are supposed to clean are dirty because they clean. So this prejudice has come in the way of job creation and cleaning gear. She said that Abhinandan should be there on Hafta. It's a great opportunity for other people to educate him and people who have uncle views like him, because he's quite open to criticism. So through you, we can educate other uncles, is a suggestion.
Yeah, but I just want to point out one thing, Niyati. I agree, and I'm open to criticism. In fact, I love talking about. But on the gender issue, I've got a lot of mail, a lot of feedback. I agree with some, but I completely disagree with a lot of views. But the one big difference, and I've also pointed this out in a long ago podcast, the starting point of a conversation where I come to is that I could be wrong about this. I've yet to hear that from the extreme woke gender justice warriors. There is not even the assumption that I may be wrong or this is an evolving conversation, we don't know everything yet. So on that, I am quite firm. I think, I've read many editorials after the UK Supreme Court's judgment, which I don't see how it could have been anything else. But on that, some of the comments I've read make me wonder at, Gen Z or post-Gen Z, their approach to, discussing outcomes, possibilities, social customs, etc. And when the XY chromosome, actually, I know quite a bit about it. I've suggested a podcast about 5 years ago called Gonads, which went into this case in great depth over 6 episodes. Do check it out.
And she says about work-life balance, the aim of such discussions should be to make life easier and happier and not to be more productive. The assumption is that people don't want to work. I want you to think where this assumption comes from. The next one is from Sandeep, who's followed the 100-word limit, which is
Yes,
very good.
150 word. Well done, Sandeep.
Hi team, great work. Love to hear Anubhav, fan of his podcast. I don't have questions, at least regarding politics. You would know in a minute when you read my question. I used to consume a lot of news, but I'm sane now. I agree with you and empathize with you. Although I have a question about the term double engine. My question goes, why it's called double engine? For some reason, I relate engine with railway engine. If it has to be double engine, then these engines have to be at each end, and that would actually stall the movement, unless it's a goods and service train. You want to weigh in on why it's a double
The
engine?
other way of looking at the politics, double engine politics.
Yeah, I mean,
ट्रेन में डबल इंजन
I think
नहीं
Qureshi,
होता
nice.
होता है,
गुड्स और ट्रेन में
होता
होता है
है,
सिर्फ गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज में होता है
double engine होता है.
But it's also got to do with aircrafts, right? There's aircrafts have, single engine, double engine, multiple engines. So it's the more engine an aircraft has, the more powerful it is. Because each engine, like you've seen those aircrafts which have, 2 of those big engines, and the others that have 4, then they have 1, 2, 3, 4, and one at the back. So you can have multiple engines. I think that's where it comes from.
Most VIPs do not like to travel by helicopter with single engine.
Right.
So they always on. There are many accidents in the past.
On that note, we will please continue to write emails. We will be taking all the emails that I've collected. I think they must have hit 60 by now or longer. Next week, those will be out. Before we wind up, let's get the recommendations for the week. You want to go first, Anand?
Yes, this is a book. I am recommending a book which I have recently read, and I have also written a review of the book. That is Gopal Krishna Gandhi's Undying Light, and for 3-4 reasons I am recommending this book. First, that it is an interesting kind of memoir and unusual in the way that he has tried to find points of intersection between his own life and the national memory, and written about it. Also because he had a front row seat to see the dramatis personae and the India story unfold after independence. He has a formidable lineage as a grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, as well as the maternal grandson of C. Rajagopalachari, the first Indian Governor General. So he talks about things that, and he has a formidable repository of archives, the photographs. As a young boy, he went to places where and heard conversations which can be the envy of any historian. So he has put it in a way. Third, because of his very balanced look at it, because the kind of people he looked at in those times, uh, and he admired also, he shows his admiration but with lot of criticism, whether it's Nehru, his own grandfather Gandhi, Patel, everyone he takes a critical look at. One exception perhaps is because he has too much respect for him is Jayaprakash Narayan.
Raman sir.
Bunch of articles on the Kashmir issue, this Pahalgam, incident. C. Raja Mohan has written today in the Indian Express. Pratap Bhanu Mehta has written a very good piece, and Amitabh Mattu in the Hindu, he also wrote a very good piece saying this, how we can handle this issue effectively, and also the fact that India, Pakistan, people have this tendency to compare maybe in the communal aspect. Otherwise, there is no comparison. India is, 10 times more, economically powerful than Pakistan. India is also diplomatically much more known, better known, than Pakistan in the world. So we can very effectively use our image to, handle this crisis. And the second recommendation is we have released 35 minutes documentary yesterday, this which is about the protest culture which is diminishing in the universities. So our intention is to go all over India and find out what is happening in these universities, which used to be the ground for budding politicians. So we have taken Delhi as a case study at this point of time, and Anmol has done a wonderful job with this. It's a beautiful documentary, so I would recommend it.
Right. Manisha?
So, one book since Kashmir, Pakistan intelligence gathering is in the news. Vikram Sood's book, The Unending Game. He's a former RAW chief. I think for those of you interested in how Pakistan army operates, also how intelligence gathering within India operates, it's a good book to pick up. There's a piece by Pratap Bhanu Mehta in Indian Express, The Pahalgam Abyss. I thought that is a must read. And I wanted to make a note of this piece that the News Minute has put out on a family from Kerala who was traveling in Kashmir, and how mutton Rogan Josh saved their lives. So they were at the base, from where you trek up to the meadow, and they were at a restaurant where they were supposed to be very popular for Rogan Josh. But the one that they got was really bad. It had a lot of salt and just bones. So they didn't touch it. And the restaurant owner was a bit worried that why aren't you eating it? They said it's not good. So they were really kind of embarrassed. And they said, no, you have to wait here and we'll cook for you. So they cooked for them. And as a result, they delayed their ascent to the meadow. And they ate. And while, within 5 minutes of them going up, they saw these 100 ponies just coming down, which at least sounds very, they thought it was a landslide. Till they then figured that, it's been an attack. They went back home. So I thought it was always crazy to see how things unfold sometimes.
Stories, in fact, crazy
Yeah.
story.
But
There's
just,
one professor who
Recited the
recited
kalma.
the kalma.
yeah, Bengali.
And they didn't shoot him.
So just want to acknowledge one subscriber had sent feedback that we should not recommend our own stories. I'm sharing that feedback with the team, but I will not
But this is a News
tell them
Minute story.
what they should or shouldn't do. What News Minute is also asked, but I'm just saying, feedback taken. I'm not sure everyone would
Fine,
agree.
ma'am, we can.
Yeah,
we can,
I agree. So in fact,
I mean, the documentary is a must watch
I'm-
that Raman's
it's a
talking
must
about.
watch.
I'm recommending something we've done. One I'm recommending, I think it's very important because it's got lost in, justifiably, in the news of the week, is the EU $700 million fine, 700 million euro fine on Meta and Apple. You should read the details of that. It's not a big fine considering there was a $2.6 billion fine, I think, a few years ago. But it's important on how this entire ecosystem and the regulatory framework around digital evolves, and we'll all be impacted by it significantly. So I think this is something that, as regular news consumers, we should be aware of because we consume so much digitally, and this government especially uses regulation rather than for the benefit of the citizens, for their benefit. So I think we should uh, be aware of what's happening in other parts of the world. The second is, we had started a podcast during COVID when there was lockdown. We just thought it would be a great way to make our subscribers travel when travel was stopped. Rocky, Mayur, Prashant, and myself were doing a podcast called Highway on my podcast, where we were retelling stories of our 8 years of making travel shows traveling around India. I want to suggest the Kashmir episode so you get an idea of just how chill it was when we shot there and how it's changed so dramatically. On that note, I'd like to thank our wonderful sound recordist, Anil, and also our producers, Ashish and Priyali. Thank you, those of you who've subscribed. Those of you who haven't, here's a QR code. Do consider subscribing. Our team depends entirely on your contributions and not on advertisements by either governments or large corporations. So do support independent media. Pay to keep news free. We'll see you again next week. Until then, have a great weekend. Bye bye.